Welcome to AFM's weekly virtual training. Thank you for attending. Please introduce yourself here with your name and where you're from in the chat. You may also use the chat feature to ask any questions or make observations about the training content. A reminder that your name on the screen is the name that will be on your certificate. If you have others watching on your screen, please send their names to Mike Cull so that they can get their certificate too. And I will put his address in the chat as soon as I have a chance. So I'm Howard Cohen, and let me turn it over to Cyrus to offer some words of encouragement for us. Cyrus? Oh, Brad has waited.
Okay, I'm very ready. Thank you very much, sir, and welcome everybody. The word of our encouragement today is all about speaking and listening. Speaking and listening. It is very important to listen when somebody is speaking on the fire service or an emergency area, because you might pick wrong information to a wrong section or a wrong place. So you need to listen when somebody is speaking. Take the information where they're supposed to be taken. If somebody asks you to take certain information from the emergency area or operational area and take it to the command post, it is very important for you to listen what this man said or what this person said and instructed you to do and to represent it at the command post. It is very important. Even somebody shouts on the ground and you are in the high-rise building doing operations there, like dealing with fire or dealing with an emergency medical to person, and somebody makes shout at the floor or at the ground. You have to listen what they are saying and take it information direct where they're supposed to be. And that's my word of encouragement today. Please let us pray. Bow our eyes down and pray. Dearly God, who is living in the heaven, say thank you, Father, for the time that you have created for us to meet again after we left each other last week, Father. Father, Lord, as we are going to proceed now with our classes today, Father, we pray you that you may lead us, you may guide us, protect us, Father, as we continue. I pray that shortly and believe in Jesus' name. All say, let's amen. You are welcome, sir, and continue. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Cyrus. Hello, Brad. Go ahead.
All right, we'll go ahead and take it away. So my apologies there again. A little bit about myself real quick. I know some of you guys that are on here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Brad Banz. Retired from Wichita, Kansas. I did 22 years as retired out as a captain. Retired, it'll be 10 years ago in August. Retired as the chief of the Colwich, Kansas Fire Department. As their fire chief, I still help out. Colwich is a little volunteer fire department right outside of Wichita. So, and Colwich is home. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about strategy and tactics. For those of you that are on here and think that we're going to talk about how we're going to solve every problem with strategy and tactics, that I'm going to give you the answer to every problem. You guys are going to be disappointed. What we're going to do is give you some methods on how to solve problems using strategy and tactics to do that. So Howard, if you want to go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. We'll go ahead and get started. Go through some objectives. First thing we're going to do is to define what strategy and tactics actually are. That's a good way to get going. Identify some incident priorities. There are 3 different incident priorities that we always talk about in the fire service. We're going to discuss those. Go through the importance of a size up, a good size up. There are all kinds of different ways that you can do a size up. There's one that I like to use. It's a really simple one. We'll talk about that. Discuss importance of resources. Why that's important when we're talking about strategy and tactics. Okay, talk about building construction. That's one of the big things that we need to consider when we're talking about strategy and tactics. Talk about a little bit about reading smoke and interpreting our fire conditions. That's another big consideration. Talk about fireground hazards. That's a really big thing we need to talk about. Talk about different fireground tasks. These are different things that you can do once we kind of go through these other considerations. These are different things that you can do once we've made all these, gone through these considerations. You can assign different tasks based on the considerations we've gone through. That's kind of why we look at these things before we consider what tasks we're going to do. It's part of your strategy and tactics. Okay, and that's your incident action plan in a nutshell. Okay, Howard, if you want to go ahead and advance, please. So, what are strategy and tactics? Strategy, that's our goals that we want to accomplish. Okay, the goals that we want to accomplish. Okay, so kind of vague, broad goals that we want to do. So an example of a goal that we might want to accomplish is to extinguish the fire. Okay. Another example of a goal that we might want to accomplish is to rescue our victims. Okay. Very, very broad goal. Okay. Nothing specific. Okay. That's a strategic goal. So the tactics, that's the tasks that we use to achieve those strategic goals. So, for example, we said that maybe one of our strategic goals was to put the fire out. So how are we going to put that fire out? We're going to take a branch and we're going to go to the first floor and we're going to advance that branch into the first floor and put the fire out with that branch line. Okay. That's a tactic that we're going to use. Okay. So that would be a tactic. Okay. And you might have to use more than one tactic to accomplish that strategy. You might have to use ventilation along with that. You're going to ventilate using cross ventilation along with advancing that branch to accomplish extinguishing that fire. So you can use more than one tactic to do that. That's just an example. Okay. So let's go ahead and advance on to the next slide, please, Howard. Okay. 3 incident priorities. You guys have probably heard this. A lot of you guys that have been doing this for any time at all have probably heard the 3 incident priorities: life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. Okay. Our highest priority is always going to be life safety, followed by incident stabilization, followed by property conservation. Okay. Whenever we plan, whenever we are setting our strategic goals, life safety comes highest. That always comes first. Okay, whenever we make our plans, whenever we're going to accomplish whatever we want to accomplish, that always comes first. Okay. So, yeah, I had a thought. But yeah, always take that into consideration. Okay, whenever you're making a plan. And your life safety is always comes before anybody else. So always take that into consideration as well. Okay. All right. Thanks, Howard. If you want to go ahead and advance that. So we talked about scene size ups. Okay. You always want to make a good scene size up. Okay. When you're making your plans. Okay. This is a really simple scene size up. And I call this doing your can report. Okay. I know not all of you guys have radios. Some of you guys do, but when we radio back to dispatch or radio to the other firefighters, when we arrive on the scene, we do a can report or do some kind of a scene size up when we arrive on the scene. I like to do a can report. Okay. That stands for conditions, actions, and needs. Okay. And that stands for the conditions I find on the scene when I arrive, my actions that I'm going to take, and what I need. Okay. And what we're really focusing on here is the conditions that we find. Okay. And that's what we're going to base our strategy and tactics are, is the conditions we find. And our firefighter here on the scene here, he's doing a 360-degree size up here. That's what he's pointing to. Our captain here, he's going to do that 360-degree size up when he arrives on the scene. In other words, he's going to do a walk around of that building to make sure that he sees everything, because what he sees when he arrives on the front of that building can be drastically different than what he can see on the other side. Okay. Or on all four sides. Okay. So it's very important that you do a good 360-degree size up. Okay, Howard, if you want to go ahead and advance, please. All right. Resources. Okay, talk a little bit about resources. That's important to setting your strategy and tactics. Oh, thank you very much. Angie just brought my lifesaver right here. So your resources, that's going to make a big difference in your strategy and tactics too, as to what you can do and what you can't do. Okay. What resources do I have? Okay. In some areas, I know you guys have a limited amount of appliances that can arrive on the scene. Okay. You may have to call, it's going to be quite a few kilometers away that you can get the next appliance on the scene. So that's going to make a big difference on what you can commit to doing and what you can't. Okay. So, but I've got some examples over here of what you guys might need for resources. Your appliances, getting police on the scene to help secure the scene, to help evacuate. That's just a couple examples of what you might need the police there for. And you guys that know me, I always kind of preach to you guys of the policeman. There's that relationship that is there between everybody and the police, but it's a good idea to try to get to know them a little bit, because they can be a good resource. EMS, obviously, you may have casualties. It could be a mass casualty incident. You may need them. Utility company, Canyon Power, other areas. I know we have folks from other countries. whoever your local utility companies are. Your disaster management units, need them out there. Red Cross, if you have a lot of victims. Construction equipment, if you have to move, if you have like a collapse, whatever the case may be, we're kind of straying away from structure fires, but whatever the case may be, if you have a fire with hazardous materials involved. Water supply an issue with you guys? Yes. If you think you're going to need water right off the bat, then start calling and getting water supply lined up. That may be an issue as to what you can do if you don't have the extra water. Okay. All things to consider. Like I said, that's why I put these other two questions here. What resources do I have? What do I need? And can I get them? If you can't get them, then you may have to structure your strategy and tactics around those considerations. If you can't get them, then your strategy is going to have to change. Okay. Okay, Howard, let's go ahead and change, please. Okay. Building construction. Okay. Occupancy type. Okay, what kind of occupancy is it? Is it residential? Is it a commercial building? Is it a factory? What kind of occupancy are we talking about? That's a consideration there as to what our strategy is going to be. Okay, building size. We're talking about a very small building, like a little a lean-to, or are we talking about a large factory building, the high-rise building that we have here? What's our size? That's another consideration. We're talking about lightweight construction. That's going to determine how long we have as far as time to get in and fight our fire, or how long it's going to be before it collapses if we have any fire load. Okay. Masonry construction. Masonry is nice because we can get in. We have more time to get in, but masonry also holds heat. Roof construction and the load on top of the roof. Okay. This kind of roof construction right here, if you get any heat underneath it, these bar joist trusses, they over an area like this, you get heat on them, they will tend to heat up and collapse. Okay. You guys all see where I'm pointing my arrow right here. Yeah, Howard's got it too. Okay. If you get a load, especially on top of that, if you have equipment on that roof, that'll add to that, and that can collapse in a hurry. Okay. High rises. That we could have a whole class just on high rises. Okay, your building construction there, just the resources that it's going to take to get up in a high rise. Your water supply issues, your stairwells, ventilation. There's a whole bunch of different things that you need to consider if you have a high-rise fire. And that, I believe, this picture here, from what I understand, that happened over New Year's in Nairobi. That's in Nairobi, actually. So, your door and window construction. Number one, this picture right here, I shot this picture. That's a door. Jose can tell you the story about this. This is at a boarding school Jose and I went to. And Cyrus, I think, was actually at that one too.
Brad, they can't see your pointer, so if you just tell me which picture to point to, I'll point to it.
The bottom middle one right here, that one right there. Cyrus was actually out there with us on that one too. That's at a boarding school. but not only like the doors and windows, they had bars on them. But that one actually had some construction going on there too. But not only the construction, the number of doors and windows as well. Okay. That can be an issue too for ventilation. Access. That's another issue. Okay. So this type of construction here, trying to think what I was going to point out here on this one. This is a type of construction you guys are going to see a lot of here, though.
Which one are you pointing to, Brad?
This one up here.
That we can't see your pointer.
You can't at all.
No, no.
The one next to the high rise, to the right of the high rise.
Right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's going to be more of a normal type of construction you're going to see. Just that masonry construction, I think. The access to that's going to be something normal that you're going to see, though. I think that's all I was going to point out on that. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide there. Okay, so things that you guys are going to see a lot of, the informal settlements, issues with that, just the construction of the buildings being in tight, utility problems, access problems in there, being able to get your hose lines in there, hose line access, the construction of the buildings. That's all issues that you guys are going to have problems with. Exposure problems. That's consideration. If you have buildings that are in tight together, you have to consider exposure problems. So you have to be able to consider getting hose lines on either side of your exposures to protect your exposures. Okay, occupancy load. If you look at the dormitory up there in the middle, Howard, I shot that picture of the dormitory. That's a consideration. Okay, there were a lot of beds in that dormitory. Buildings with fire systems. Okay, down in the bottom right. Okay, if you have buildings with sprinkler systems, that's wonderful. Other fire systems would be standpipes. Know your buildings with standpipes. So, you can have standpipes to hook into. That'll give you access to upper floors. That's a bonus. Okay, access problems. You have the market right there to your the one in the upper right. You have the markets, and there again the informal settlements. That's another place where you'd have access problems. The informal settlements. Okay, and then just buildings with fire loads. Okay, the markets would be another place where you'd have problems with the fire load as well, where they stack a lot of high piled material. Okay, that's all building construction problems. Howard, can you think of anything else where we'd have building construction issues?
No, the main thing is just the speed of the spread of fire based on the construction, and then collapse issues.
Yep.
But I think you touched everything.
All right, very good. Thank you. We can go ahead and move on. Just a lot of things to consider when you're doing that size up. Okay, hazards. Okay, we have the utility hazards. If you look down in the bottom right-hand corner, the bottom right-hand other one, there you go.
Okay.
You got the utility hazards. You can see that power line that's hanging down low. That's always a consideration, especially if you get into the informal settlements. That's always an issue when you get into the informal settlements, the utility hazards. Okay, you have wall and roof collapses. If you think you're going to have a wall and roof collapse, you have to consider setting perimeters for that, pulling people back. Backdraft and flashover at the upper right-hand corner there. You can see it coming out the door there. That's good flashover there. Hazardous building contents, lower left-hand corner there. You can kind of see some hazardous issues there. Exposure hazards, once again, we'll cover that. If you have like tanks, hazardous materials, you might be working with cylinders, other types of things like that. Many types of hazardous materials you might be working with. That's all hazardous exposures that you need to be aware of. Things that you got to consider when you're planning that strategy. Okay, uneven terrain. You get out on a site where you have uneven terrain out on the site. Could be a hazard to your firefighters. You could have ditches, things like that you have to consider working around. Crowds. You guys have problems with crowds. Okay, that's a consideration if you need to protect your firefighters, and I know that can be a problem. So plan that into your strategy. Okay. Okay, Howard, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, reading smoke. Reading smoke and fire conditions. That's always a concern. That's probably one of the biggest concerns we need to look at when we're planning our strategy. Okay. Usually four different things we want to look at with our smoke, and that's volume, velocity, density, and color. Okay, that one in the upper left-hand corner. If you look at the very top of that picture, look at the nasty, ugly black smoke. Okay, a lot of volume coming out of there, and it's black. Okay, look at the crazy thing about that picture. Look at the inside of the store. There's nothing inside that store to indicate that there's a fire. Okay, so that's what I found interesting about that picture. Okay, but there's coming from that attic, there's a lot of nasty black smoke. So the volume, there's three things that we're looking at there. The volume, and actually four: volume, the velocity, the density, and the color. Okay, there's a lot of volume. You can tell it's moving at a high velocity. It's very dense and it's black, which tells us that there's a lot of fire in that attic.
Moses, can you mute? Just a second.
Question?
Moses, would you mute?
Okay. Okay. So moving down, the one on the lower left-hand corner, if you look at it, that's kind of an interesting one as well.
Brad, unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Got it.
Good. Yeah, I muted it.
Okay, so
it was unmuted.
So the one in the lower left-hand corner, there's less smoke. There's a little bit of blackish color. coming out of the doorway right there where Howard's got the arrow pointed. Okay. Which kind of tells you that it's coming out of just that one location. Okay. So that's important. That's kind of telling you that maybe it's just coming from the one location in the building. There's a little bit of volume to it, but it doesn't have the volume or the density, right? So it's telling you that there's not as much fire. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you don't see any smoke at all, but you see a little bit of fire in a couple of windows. Even in just the one window, you have to look really close. So, and there again, in the bottom right-hand corner, you see a lot of smoke, a lot of fire there, a lot of very dense, boiling, churning smoke. So that's an easy one to make a decision on there. So those are things that you have to look at to make your decisions as far as reading smoke. And there again, we can do a whole class on reading smoke as far as your decision making. So let's go ahead and move on as far as what we can do. So let's cover some tasks. Talk a little bit about direct attack. So once we've kind of gone through all of these things that we've talked a little bit about, we've looked at some of these other things that can help us make those decisions. Then we can say, okay, what can I do? Based on what I've seen, these are some of the things that we can do based on what we've seen, okay? Can we do a direct attack, which means we can go offensive? Can we do an indirect attack? Okay, which means that we can do a defensive attack, okay? Howard, we have a direct attack in the upper left-hand corner there. Okay. Then to the right of that, we have more of a defensive attack where he's outside. He or she's outside. And then down in the right there, that'd be more of a defensive attack as well. And then that's also, they're doing some exposure protection as well, which is the next one down. Okay, our exposure protection, we're protecting our exposures and keeping that fire from spreading. Okay, that's a consideration. Okay, rescue, that'd be over to the right there. Okay, that's where we get into life safety. That's number one on the list, isn't it? Life safety, as far as our priorities, doing rescues, evacuations. We have a rapidly spreading fire. We want to try to get everybody out. If we can, if it's safe for them to do so, that's where we can enlist the police or our EMS folks to help us too if they're there. Where they're out of the smoke and fire, we can get them in and tell them, hey, we need help knocking on doors. If it's a large enough building, knocking on doors and saying, hey, get everybody out. So evacuation, ventilation, okay, down in the lower left-hand corner. Or that's what we could do a whole class on ventilation. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about direct or like our fire attack and ventilation. We can do what's called a coordinated fire attack. All right, you can work your ventilation and your fire attack together. Okay, and that's called a coordinated fire attack, and that means you do it together. If you don't do it together, you can cause a fire to spread by not having a line in place and doing your ventilation. If you ventilate and you don't have a line in place, you can actually cause the fire to spread. Okay, and if you do the ventilation in the wrong place, you can actually hurt firefighters, all right? And if you have two lines, and if you put a line through the ventilation hole, and you have another line, a branch line that goes through your ventilation hole, and you have firefighters coming in the other side and push that fire back on your other firefighters, you can hurt firefighters. And that's why it's called a coordinated fire attack. Okay. So, but ventilation and working ventilation and fire attack together can be very effective, and you can, it makes it easier for the firefighters to work inside, and it can stop a fire from spreading if you do it the right way. Ventilation can also be effective in keeping the fire away from victims, okay? Venting for life. Okay, Simon, can I consider wind direction when working or doing ventilation? Yes, that's a very important consideration. Especially if you have firefighters inside. If you try to ventilate against your hand line, you're going to push the fire back onto your firefighters. That's a good question. Very good question. Okay. Good question. Thank you. All right, Howard, let's go ahead and move on, please.
Yep. Can I just add to that, Brad, about the wind? It gives you, if the wind is blowing in such a way that you need to protect the other structures that are on the other side of the burning building, or downwind from the burning building, you got to take that into consideration too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to when you ventilate, you don't want to push the fire back onto your exposure structures. Very good. Okay, some other things we can do. Forcible entry. Sometimes we have to force our way in. That's another task. Okay, utility control. Sometimes we have to get the power secured. A lot of you guys don't so much have gas lines into the buildings, but just getting that power secured may be as simple as throwing a breaker. If you can't do that, you'll have to wait for the power company to get there, but make sure that's taken as a consideration. It's getting those utilities secured. Okay. A lot of times you guys can do that, though, is to throw a breaker, get power secured into the building. Okay, salvage and overhaul. Going through getting those hidden fires put out. That's an important consideration. Okay, sometimes we have to do nothing. Sometimes we have to do nothing. If we have a hazardous materials incident, something like that, we may have to evacuate everybody and back away if it's a fire with hazardous materials. Okay, that may be our correct action to do. Okay, that may be the right action to do. Okay, that may be the only thing we can do, is to do nothing, let it run its course. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. So like I said, we're going to use our life safety incident stabilization, and property conservation.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Adelino, I see you put a question up there. An abandoned building. That's a good question. Hold on, let me let my dog out. He's making a noise. There. In abandoned buildings. Adelina, you bring up a good question before we go on. You can do nothing. You don't want to. That's a big argument for people. In the U.S., that's a big source of arguments to a lot of people. We have in some cities we have a lot of homeless people. We have a lot of homeless people in some cities. A lot of homeless people live in abandoned buildings. Obviously, if they're fully involved, where you can't get in, you're not going to be able to do it. But it depends on your population, and it depends on the extent to which the building's burning too. But like I say, there's circumstances when you might want to try to extinguish it and even go in and search. That's a very good question. We had one of our firefighters that came along on one of our AFM trips to Kenya, got very upset when we said that we weren't going to put a fire out in an abandoned building because of the fact in their city they have a lot of homeless that live in the abandoned buildings. So, Howard, do you remember that conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't, and that's for that reason. So, but that's a good question. Thank you for bringing that up. So anyway, moving along. Like I said, we're always going to tailor our action plan towards life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. Okay. Like I said, the life safety is always our highest priority. Life safety is always our highest priority. And we're going to take our fire conditions that we talked about, our hazards, our resources, and our building construction. All of those things that we talked about, and we're going to put those things into making our incident action plan. We're going to take all of those things and put those into creating our incident action plan. All right. So, and those tasks, the tasks that we talked about, they could all be different. Okay. You can have more than one strategy, more than one. And usually you do have more than one strategy at any fire. Okay. So, let's go back. Howard, let's go back to the picture where we have the dormitory that just has a couple of little fires in it. We'll talk about that one. One more.
This slide? One more slide?
It's the one where it's got the little dormitory, and it's just got like a.
Oh,
I think it's got the one with the gas station.
This the one?
No, it's the one with the gas station.
I don't remember gas station, but
yeah, that one right there.
This one.
Hold on. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about that one. And I want some input from the class. If you look in the dormitory in the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to have you guys do some problem solving for me. If you look there in that building, based on what you guys see there, What would your strategy and tactics be based on what you guys see?
Am I pointing to the right one, Brad?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's it.
Do you want them to unmute and answer, or put it in the chat?
Yeah, no, unmute and answer. We can talk through it.
Anybody want to unmute and give them an response?
What's our fire conditions that you see?
You know, Brad, we could also take this into the tea time and continue the conversation there if you want, since it's approaching 9 o'clock.
Okay, yeah, we could do that if you want to.
Yeah, let's do that. People tend to be more talkative in the tea time.
Okay, we can do that. That
And
way you guys get a chance to work a problem. We'll do that one, and we'll do the building in the lower left-hand corner.
All right, I could put the slide back up too during tea time.
Okay, yeah, we'll do it. We'll work those. We'll work those problems.
You want to go to your last slide then?
Yeah, that's fine.
You want to do this one, or do you want me to go to this one?
Yeah, that's all. That's all.
That's it?
Any questions?
If there's nothing coming up in the chat, we'll take more. We'll have at tea time. We'll revisit this. So I'm going to go ahead and tie things up. I'm going to stop the slides for right now. So let me say to everyone, thank you, Brad, for your presentation, and thank you all of you for participating in today's training. We will be posting the recording online soon for future reference, and I did correct the links, and so you have those now. You can get them in the chat as long as the Zoom app is up. And we appreciate your feedback and the evaluation, so we can continue to make these presentations relevant and better. Next week, I will be presenting on crisis incident stress management. That's how a way to process when you're dealing with horrible stuff, which as first responders we often do. You will be able to use the same link to log into the training next week if you are able and planning to attend. Please invite other firefighters and first responders to register and attend our trainings. Thank you, and remember, a better fire service starts with you. And on that, I'm going to end the recording.